Welcome to the Exposer. Today we will be exposing Spac Nation pastor, ex-gang member, 28-year-old Kevin Ifeko, also known as PK, also known as CK. Kevin, who's from Newham, has a serious history as a gang member. He's been in and out in jail for a period of 7 years before he joined Spac Nation. He mentions himself he's been in trouble for murder and attempted murder twice. He went to prison for shootings countless of amount of times, and his life has been a trail of violence. So Kevin mentioned he actually came to Spac to hurt somebody, a rival gang member. So he said he came to Spac with a knife, and on that day the preaching touched him and he went to drop his knife at the altar. That's a lie. The reason why he joined Spac Nation was because 1, his girlfriend was there, and 2, he knew that Pastor Toby would somehow invest in him, because this is what he was told. Pastor Toby was delighted to have someone like Kevin come to his church. So Pastor Toby told PK and his girlfriend that he would help change their life around. So his main motive for joining Spac Nation was because he thought he could make some money. It wasn't because he wanted to change his life around, it's because he wanted to make some money. So Kevin decided to become a Spac Nation member. So behind the scene, him and Pastor Toby would have a lot of meetings. This is what Pastor Toby does to get the attention of the gang members. He brings them to his house, makes them feel comfortable to see how he's living, and he makes them believe they will also have this lifestyle if they join Spac Nation. So Kevin was excited, and Kevin was eager to get things going at Spac Nation. Pastor Toby was so happy because he was told that Kevin was a notorious gang member in East London. So Pastor Toby knew he could influence a lot of people to join Spac Nation from his borough. Toby also knew this could help with the image of Spac Nation. Getting a guy who's been in and out of jail for 7 of the last 8 years would help the world see Spac Nation as a church that helps young roadmen change their life around. So Pastor Toby looked at it from an image point of view and from a business point of view, because now he would have a serious gang member by his side, and he will also have a guy who's determined to do anything to get money. So Toby asked Kevin what he wanted to do with his life, and Kevin said he wanted to have his own chauffeur company, and that he only needed 30 grand to start it off. So Pastor Toby made the whole church raise 30 grand for Kevin. So Kevin now had his own chauffeur company, allegedly. I can tell you guys that chauffeur company never ever existed. It was never a legal company. It never existed. This was something designed to fool the whole church to raise money. Pastor Toby knew that 30k was not going into a chauffeur business, because what he does is he aligns himself with gang members, ones that are fresh from coming out of jail, and he knows if he gives them money, he knows if they believe in the idea of Spac Nation and he gives them money, these guys will go and flip that money and give back to Pastor Toby. So he might not directly say, I want you to go and do the things you was doing before to flip my money, but he will just tell them, I'm giving you this money and I'm trusting you to give me back, or doubling back. This is what Pastor Toby does, allegedly. But the chauffeur company never existed, so the whole church was conned out of 30k. Toby knew the influence of Kevin, because Kevin was coming to church with all of his gang members, and he had some who were already at Spac Nation. Stephen Rose. Toby believed he had the most notorious gang members in his church. So Toby felt untouchable and unstoppable. He believed the likes of Kevin and Stephen will make a whole generation of guys on the roads, young members come to Spac Nation. He believed young men who were on the streets would look up to Kevin and Stephen and would want to also join Spac Nation, because he made everyone believe roadmen that join Spac Nation will get money to start up their own business. This is why it started to spread that Spac Nation invest money into the youth. This is why once upon a time Spac Nation had a good reputation for doing that. And Kevin's story is one of the main reasons, because he openly came and admitted in front of everyone that Pastor Toby invested £30,000 into a business that he opened, which I can tell you guys never existed in the first place. So Spac Nation have been lying to the public for a very long time. You can check online, type the business, King's Class never existed. You can check the Instagram page and there's a picture of Chris Eubank in a Range Rover. A picture taken and used to promote on Kevin's page to make it look like this company really existed, but it was all a lie. Just happened to be Chris Eubank came a couple times to Spac Nation to give a word, so they would use him and take pictures of him and then try to promote it and attach it to their own business. But later on, this business was no longer talked about. Behind the scene, Kevin started to generate money for Pastor Toby. So the money Pastor Toby gave him, we don't know the exact amount. We know that the church raised 30k, but we do not know exactly what Pastor Toby gave to Kevin directly. Because at Spac Nation, all the pastors lie to each other just to try and deceive the public, because it helps the reputation of Spac Nation. But later on, Kevin was generating some money for Pastor Toby, and Kevin knew that at Spac Nation everyone gives, and he knew that if you give, you become a leader in the church, and when you become a leader in the church, you have more opportunities of making money for yourself, because he believed he would have his own house, he would have his own cars, he will be able to go everywhere with PT and close businesses like PT is doing. So Pastor Toby, he speaks to all of his members about his giving. He tells them that he used to work as a kitchen porter and he would make £400 a month, and he would give half of his money as offering and seed. And he believes this is what made him become who he is today. This is what makes the Spac members give everything, because they tell themselves, if Pastor Toby gave half of his money and he was barely making anything, we should be given more, because look at what Pastor Toby has achieved today. This is how they look at it. But they don't realize that Pastor Toby is lying. He's a guy that has lied about everything that he has done. He came to this country and studied and found a way of making money as a pastor, and he took it. But his story about how he came here, he had nothing, is all a lie, because Pastor Toby, his dad and his family have money back in Nigeria, and allegedly they have been scamming people from a long time. For a long time ago, they've been scamming people. So he came to the UK to continue the scamming, and he used church to do it. But when he preaches about his past, all of his members believe him, even though Pastor Toby has changed his stories more than 10 times. He lied about the investments he had. He lied about being involved in a property business to get his wealth. He lied. I'm not going to get into Pastor Toby because his exposing will be a very special one. But back to Kevin. So Kevin believed in PT. Kevin now wanted to become like PT because he was finally brainwashed. So him and PT will talk in codes. Like I said, PT knew what gang members were doing behind the scene to get seed, because he encourages people to do whatever they need to do. He won't directly tell them, go and sell drugs or go and steal, but he will say to them, do what you have to do. So PT was involved in flipping, allegedly, as in giving money to Kevin, knowing that Kevin will flip it. So it was no coincidence. Few months after Kevin joined Spac Nation, he was ordained as a pastor. This is the guy who did not know the Bible. A guy who barely knew how to pray became a pastor. At the time, people saw it as a motivation, but people did not understand the reason why Kevin became a pastor. He became a pastor because he was giving. And Toby would give him money to flip, allegedly, and he would be giving a lot of money back to Pastor Toby. This is the main reason why he was ordained. But Toby made it the biggest celebration. He named Kevin the Prince of the East because Toby believed Kevin was in control of the whole of East London. He believed Kevin was the most feared man in East London. So he thought it would make a positive impact to the media and to everyone that attends the church. But this is a guy who was fresh out of jail and only been to Spac Nation for a few months, already becomes a pastor. When there are members who have been at the church for numerous years, who know the word, and only gave what they could. But because Kevin was giving money to Pastor Toby, he made him a pastor at Spac Nation. He knew that Kevin was fully involved and fully brainwashed. He saw it as a quick making money business because Toby at the time had a lot of fellowships, and he believed Kevin's fellowship would generate more wealth and more money. This is why he sped up the process of making him a pastor, so he can open up a fellowship for him. So he opened up a fellowship for Kevin in East London, and that fellowship was promoted as the fellowship that would generate wealth, to encourage a lot of people to go there. Toby believed Kevin would be able to influence all of his friends into the Spac Nation mindset, and all of the youths in Beckton to join Kevin's fellowship, so he could brainwash these kids and manage to get income from them. So there was a lot of girls and a lot of young men who was going to Kevin's fellowship. And PT knew, with Kevin's mindset, whatever his target was, Kevin will somehow manage to get the money. So Kevin, he also had his girlfriend Joanna at Spac Nation. She was ordained as an evangelist. So him and her would always be together. So he would use her to bring her friends to the fellowship, so that his fellowship would always be packed out, and so that we can brainwash and manipulate people into giving. So Kevin and his girlfriend one day at the fellowship had the police run up inside the fellowship. His girlfriend attacked one of the police, and she was arrested and spent a night in the cells and was released the next day. The reason for that was because Kevin would bring a lot of gang members to his fellowship. So police would circulate around his fellowship. So they would always think there was something suspicious around that fellowship. But the truth of the matter is, Kevin had his gang members there, not just because he wanted to change them, it's because he wanted them there as protection also. So this only encouraged the police to be around him, because he was supposed to be a pastor that was out of that life. But for some reason, he was still around these men that was committing crazy crime. And today, most of the guys he was around are in jail today. So it just shows you, Kevin was still part of that life, but he used Spac Nation to disguise himself, so that he can do his things from far, allegedly. And Kevin now started to use the methods at Spac Nation. He started to trade, apparently, which is a lie. He was selling Bitcoin on his social media for numerous amount of pounds. He was also counting cash 24/7. Kevin would promote money. He would be in a hotel room filled with cash. So remember, this is a guy who doesn't really have a job. His company doesn't really exist. He has no history of trading and has never learned to trade, but he's somehow selling Bitcoin and offering to train youths on trading. This is a guy who doesn't even know his Bible, a pastor who is now doing things online where he's publishing 20,000-30,000 pounds in hotel rooms. Where was he getting his money from? Kevin was becoming like PT, a serial liar. Everything he was bragging and showing was all a lie. He even displayed that he had bought a house, which was a lie. Spac Nation got Kevin to move into the trap house. So it's a house that is rented under someone else's name. So Kevin moved in these trap houses because the fellowships was no longer profiting. The fellowships were all closed. So Spac Nation will use the trap houses now to do the dodgy activities behind the scene. So in Kevin's trap house, he has a lot of young, vulnerable people. He will dictate what they do and how they do it. Allegedly, he would get some of them to even sell drugs. Allegedly, he would get some of them to take out loans. He would get them to do everything that he wants them to do, they'll have to do. If they don't, he would kick them out of the house, or he would punish them. Kevin is training these young people to become like him. And he's using the PT method. So when I said he's using the PT method, it means he's doing what PT did with him. He's not telling these young people to actually go outside and sell drugs or whatever. But he's telling these young people, you need to be able to get money. You do what you have to do. So they'll all have targets. Because he wants to be one of the pastors at Spac Nation that gives the most. So he has a whole fellowship under him. And he also has a few lines that they call under him. So this is where he will generate a bunch of young kids or young adults to raise money for him. So he looks like he houses these people. He feeds them. Gives them what they want. But in return, they need to be able to provide for seed minimum. So he will encourage them to get, whether it's 50 to 100 pounds a week, he will make sure he has it. So these are trap houses filled with young people. It could be a house with 4 or 5 rooms, and you will have 14, 15 young people living with him. Because his method is, if he has 15 people living under him, even if all these young people could provide 50 or 100 pounds a month, that's enough for him to give to Pastor Toby and enough for him to put in his pocket. So this is why he'll put pressure on these young kids to give more, to find a way to hustle, to find a way to get money. And everything they get, he dictates what they do with it. He tells them how much they give him. This is the type of man that is a Spac Nation. This is a guy also who went to prison visits, a pastor, and saw ex-members and had a fight with them. He's fighting people on jail visits. This guy hasn't changed at all. Allegedly, he's still involved in robberies that was planned by Pastor Arthur. So the guy is still a criminal, and he's doing things in Spac Nation that he was doing on the streets. But now he's under the radar because the government think he's a pastor. So Kevin is destroying a lot of people's lives at Spac Nation. People do not understand this. He carries himself in the same manner as he carried himself on the streets. Inside the church, people still look up to him like a roadman. People are still afraid of him because this is a guy who brags about his criminal past. He has allegedly admitted to some of the crimes that he was arrested for, which he was found not guilty of committing. He brags to the young people about his past. He even tells young people, young members at Spac Nation, that he still has a connection. So if these young guys need to pick up drugs or anything, he still has the connection for it, allegedly. So you guys saw yesterday a woman who has a child who was living in Kevin's trap house, wanted to leave Spac Nation, and he allegedly assaulted her and took her phone just because she wanted to leave. She came out and said the whole truth that goes on there. She mentioned kids from all age groups living in the trap house of Kevin. She had to sleep on the floor on a little mattress with her child, her daughter. Her name is under the house that he's living. And this is how he treated her. He took her phone and hacked her stuff. He put things about her private life out there. This is a pastor. This is his reaction to a member wanting to leave just because of fear of the fact that this woman knows a lot about him. And there's rumors that the woman who left, that was living in his trap house, is his own friend's baby mother. So he has done this to his own friend. Right now, his whole area has turned on him because they have found out the truth. He has changed because he has been conning and lying and deceiving his own people. His own cousin who passed away, Spac Nation did a documentary, put it on the documentary, the funeral of his own cousin that died. Kevin promised the mother that Spac Nation would pay for the funeral. Spac Nation used them for the documentary, and Kevin never gave a penny to the mother of his cousin that he promised for the funeral. And when family members have tried to contact him, Kevin has ignored the phone calls and is ignored to even respond to the messages. This is the type of guy he is. He has become just like his pastor, a liar. A compulsive liar. He will lie for the cameras just to make Spac Nation look good. And behind the scene, he isn't doing what he's doing, what he's saying he's doing. His own cousin, a guy that was so close to him, that passed away, a guy that he brought to Spac Nation. He promised to fund for a funeral and had no shame in ignoring his own auntie's messages or phone calls. Because Spac Nation is a lie. They do not have what they say they have. They promise things to people and they never live up to it. Even Kevin, right now, he's doing what Pastor Toby has done to him. Promised him to have everything. But it's all a lie. Because ultimately, these guys get lured into this wealthy lifestyle that they don't have. Because everything is rented. Everything is leased. Nothing is under any of their names. They don't own anything. But when they join Spac Nation, they think Pastor Toby owns all the things that he has. But he doesn't. So they start to do what he does. The only difference is Pastor Toby, majority of the money the church raises goes into his pocket. But for people like Kevin, they only get a small cut of the money they raise for him. So they have to live in houses where they're sharing rooms with a bunch of kids. And these are the pastors that they have at Spac Nation. This is a guy who was a criminal and he's still a criminal. Because he's still operating as a criminal. Because he's deceiving and fooling young people into giving them things. He's dictating, he's hurting lives. He's allegedly assaulting women just because they want to leave the cult. So Kevin, who's now been at Spac Nation for a few years, is also involved when it comes to opening business online. He opened up a business last year called Centric Entertainment, and what coincidence, the business is dissolved this year. So the business never even lasted more than a year, which of course lets us know what he's done. Taking out a business loan and waiting for the company to dissolve. They all do it. This is why it's frustrating why the government or whoever is meant to be investigating or the police haven't noticed a pattern that a lot of the members that go Spac Nation have done these things. But I understand why they haven't actually, because they're not supposed to know that every single person that's taken out a loan goes to Spac Nation, because they don't take the loans under Spac Nation, they take the loan under themselves. So it makes it harder for people to track it. But now, with all these videos that are out, people should know that they're all Spac Nation members, and is it not strange that each one of them has opened multiple businesses online which has dissolved? Businesses that are not legitimate because nothing is reported. We do not even know if he exists. There's no proof that anything was even raised from these businesses. Which means these lot are using these businesses to convince people to invest in straight into their bank accounts. So people are not investing business, they're not investing the money into the business, they're investing the money into Kevin's pocket. Because he will give them an account number where to transfer the money. But that account number is not connected to the business. So this is how they are doing fraud. And people need to understand this. So to round it up, there's so much more to talk about Kevin. But what I can tell you guys is, he's still a criminal. And he's still using the same principles that he used whilst he was on the street into Spac Nation. He's extorting and destroying people's lives. He has kids from the age of 12 to 16 that are around him, and this is a guy who is a convict. Social service needs to know why a guy like that is responsible for these kids. Because Kevin shouldn't be around these kids. This is a guy who was only out of jail about a year ago. A guy who done 7 years where he was going in and out of jail. This is not a reformed man. This is a man who's fighting people when he goes to prison visits. This is a man who is influencing young people to come to him if they still need drugs, allegedly. This is a guy who's still around that circle of friends who are doing things to society. We cannot sleep on these guys. We need to continue to expose them. Because Kevin has been used to manipulate a whole community. He's the reason why Spac Nation had the reputation of helping the youth come off the streets. But now we know the truth. The only reason Spac Nation need people like Kevin is for protection, and they're people that know how to generate money. That's the only reason they have them around them. And these serial criminals are around our youth. So we must continue to expose them. Right now the church is hiding. The church is crumbling. This is a guy who's allegedly assaulting women. A guy who has backstabbed all of his friends. This is the exposing of Kevin PK.